Hello there and welcome to the Fixing Football podcast. As you can see, I am not Martin, I'm Liam. I am your, temporary host of the Fixing Football podcast. You've got at least 1 week of me, maybe two. We'll see how Martin reacts when he's editing this recording. I'm joined by Scott today. How are you, Scott? You okay?
I'm very well, mate. I'm very well. Now that we've completed our coup and Martin is out the picture, I'm feeling a lot better about things, to be honest.
Yeah, well, Martin has been concerned about this potential. Now, for those that don't know, the reason Martin isn't on the podcast today is the Fixing Football podcast has a newest member of the podcast family, your actual family, Scott. And that is the birth of Parker Lewis Naylor.
Yes.
So, congratulations to Martin and Vicky and the whole of the Naylor and Blakemore families. Except you, Scott, you horrible little goblin. No congratulations to you. But no, amazing news. We're all very happy. And I have been dreading the idea of hosting the podcast, but there's no nicer way and reason to do it. So congratulations to them. Just please come back soon, Martin, because this is stressful. So, just me and you today, Scott. Now,
it is.
The big event or talking point at the moment is, of course, the launch of the Club World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
So let's have a little bit of a talk about it first of all. How have you found it so far, Scott?
It's been a little bit weird. So I watched the first game, which was Inter Miami. It would have been better if it was Inter Milan. Inter Miami versus Al Ahly, who are the Egyptian champions. And I left it with some mixed feelings. Did you watch the game, first of all? Did you catch the first one?
I didn't watch that one. The 1 o'clock ones, I'm going to struggle with them. But I have seen some of the games. Yeah. And I'll come in later.
Yeah, so it was weird. It was one of the most entertaining 0-0 draws I've ever seen. It had everything but a goal. There was saved penalties, goal line clearances. It was a bit feisty at times as well. I think you can tell like the likes of Messi and Suarez and Busquets, they're noticeably a step slower. I know they're in the late 30s now, pushing 40, but I don't know where they were playing on, if it was the heat or whatever it is, but they seem to struggle with it a little bit. I don't know what it was.
It was in Miami, wasn't it? It was
it in their home?
It was in Miami, not in their normal stadium, I believe. Though is it in the NFL stadium?
Oh, the Dolphins.
I'm not an expert, but it was a 60,000 stadium, so I assume that's NFL.
Yeah, it will be. They're putting it in some big stadiums. They've gone for it. I think FIFA, they've booked all the biggest ones out. And yeah, in terms of a game to watch, actually quite entertaining. It's a shame that nobody could get on the score sheet. But there was a few things. So as a game of football, fine. I found the presentation of it they've gone very American. They've lent, not just as a host nation, they've lent into a lot of American style production, which is a little bit jarring. I think the biggest one that stands out is they introduce each player individually, like they do in the NBA.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah, I did. I must admit that caught my eye when I was watching the Bayern Munich Auckland City game, because I can't imagine too many fans were looking forward to the Auckland City players each being individually. And it's almost like wrestling, sort of just one shy of wrestling theme songs, isn't it?
Yeah, you're getting in that region, and I think announcing Lionel Messi as the headline player, it kind of works for that, but it doesn't quite work for Clement Longley of Atletico Madrid and any random youngster that Chelsea are going to put out later on today. So yeah, all in all, I think the games so far have been all right. I did watch a bit of the Palmeiras-Porto game because of young Estevan Willian, who's going to join Chelsea soon. I thought I'd check him out and see how he looked.
Yeah, and obviously later on we will get into Chelsea, because we're recording on the eve of Chelsea's entrance onto the world's biggest stage. So we'll cover Chelsea a little bit at the moment. How did you find the Palmeiras-Porto game?
Another one that was quite exciting, quite back and forth. Palmeiras pressed really, really well. I found. I was quite surprised at the quality in the Palmeiras team, but it was very much give it to Estevan and see what he can do with it kind of tactic.
Right, okay.
Once they won the ball, and considering he's only 18, and I know that the standard in Brazil ranges from global superstar wonder kids to absolutely terrible. So it's a bit of a weird.
There's been a lot of noise about Estevan for a couple of years. I've been aware of him even before. I think you agreed on him 12 months ago. But I think they can only leave when they're the end of the season when they turn 18, I think, is how it works.
Yeah.
But I've been aware of Esther for a good couple of years. So I'm not surprised that he holds that stature in the team because he is a standout player in that league, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I think he's the next big Brazilian hope, and even the likes when a bit like when Neymar was coming through. Oh, he's the next this and that. He's the next Ronaldinho. He's kind of getting dubbed that new Neymar, that new Ronaldinho. That and whether he ever lives up to that is.
Am I right? Estevao he played in the most recent Brazil games, didn't he? He was in, and he started, didn't he? Didn't he start? I might be wrong.
He did start. I think he played against Spain, and I think he did struggle against Spain. And I think I guess he's only 18 years old. He's got to develop a lot physically, particularly to compete in the Premier League. And he was basically up against Cucurella. No, not Cucurella. Yeah, he was up against Cucurella, who he's had a great season. He's seasoned Premier League left back, exactly the kind of player he's going to come up against, and he's probably one of the better ones in the league. So
yeah,
I think he did struggle a little bit, but again, when you factor in he's 18, he probably needs to put some size on to compete against these kinds of players. It was one of those, it's like, okay, he's going to have the odd stinker now and again. A bit like Yamal was against when did Yamal play? And he had a bit of a poor game.
Nations League final.
Yeah, Nations League final. Yeah, and he had a bit of a... And it's one of those with players that age, you're going to get those fluctuations in performance. But overall, like last night in particular, he looked pretty good. He gave Porto a bit of a torrid time until he got taken off. So
yeah,
I like what I've seen. I'm liking what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I think that's an exciting. I think that's an exciting signing for Chelsea. We'll touch on Chelsea a little bit more later, but be interesting what that means for Madueke and other players like that because it certainly moves some players down the pecking order because I imagine he would be very much in around the starting 11. I think pretty early doors. And it'd be interesting what that means for Cole Palmer because I know you've got aversions to a central attacking midfield Cole Palmer. So that's an interesting situation to manage. But we'll come to Chelsea later.
Yeah.
What do you think of the attendances? I know the one that caught the eye particularly was the Miami game. And considering the ticket demand for a Messi game is usually astonishingly high, did they make a mistake playing that game in Miami where people can watch him anyway? Like, did that play a factor, do you think?
I think it did. I don't think it helped. And then you move it to, as you pointed out, a stadium that's a lot bigger. So you've got an extra, 20,000 seats to fill, which it's a lot of people to try and find. And even if they started to drop the prices of the tickets to try and get people in. And you mentioned wrestling before. They did an old wrestling trick of when you don't sell out an arena or a stadium, wherever the camera is, put no fans behind the camera. Everybody's this way, and you never shoot that side of the camera. You just pretend that side of the stadium doesn't exist. It's a classic wrestling camera trick, and I'm sure other sports have done it as well. So,
Bolton Wanderers have been doing that for years. I'm sure the ticket prices now vary depending on what block you're in for this exact reason. So,
yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't blame him. I think it's tricky, isn't it? It's very much a yardstick for where it is. I mean, so what about other games then? So you've obviously had the Bayern Auckland game. That was a difficult one. I think for me that game is where this tournament really exposes the biggest issue of it. So for me, there's been some. Yeah, it's not really caught fire for me yet, to be completely honest. I think it does not help that the big games have kind of floundered a little bit. So like that Miami game, the last thing that the American market needed was that to be 0-0, regardless of how good the game is. It doesn't very much scream American market, does it? I don't want to go down too much stereotypes about American attention spans, but I won't go down that route. But anyway, so there's that. I mean, the Bayern Auckland game's a farce, in truth. I mean, but how do you get around that? Auckland are the dynastic champions of the Oceanic Champions League. It's like 10 wins in like 20 years of existence or something like that. They absolutely walk it. But they are part-timers. To a man. They are not even a professional club. I watched all the build-up. I was genuinely interested in a lot of it, to be honest. And when I saw their ground, which is essentially, to my eye, on par with the ground that Everton Collieries play out, which I can't remember the name of now. It really struck home to me, and it was outrageous, the difference. And do you think that will harm the competition's credibility, those kind of games? Do you think there should be more qualification for other confederations, or do you think that takes away from the spirit of it?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I think you hit the nail on the head there. I don't know how good an advert for this tournament it is when the first two games are 0-0 and 10-0, respectively. I don't know what that sort of says about the whole thing. I think Martin touched on this in our esteemed group chat about how you should get rid of the teams like the Auckland Cities and whoever else is going to probably be on the receiving end of an absolute spanking. But then again, you then start getting into Nations League territory, don't you? If you're only inviting the elite and the top and the people at the top table, is that fun either? I mean, okay, you might see some high quality games, but then again, what we thought would be the most competitive game so far, which is PSG and Atletico, 4-0 to PSG, was not competitive whatsoever. Atletico got absolutely smashed. So,
well, yeah, I mean that's a very good point. I think it's a slightly different result for a number of reasons. My tip to win now, Atletico, good start. But I wonder about it because my heart says that they should be there because that's the whole point, and other confederations should be represented. I not worry because I'm not the biggest diehard Club World Cup fan, but I wonder whether it will be sustainable with those kind of fixtures, because the whole marketing of this is that it will be the best. Yeah. But for me, when you've not got teams like Barcelona, Inter Milan, you've not got Arsenal, I would say, who have been probably at least the second best team in England for a long time, arguably the best. You're missing a lot of the best players in the world, which are essentially in Europe. So I think it will be interesting to see how that goes, but I think it's a hard one to answer.
Yeah, it'll be a learning curve from it's the first iteration, and they're going to do it again in 4 years' time. I'm sure they will look at what worked and what didn't work and adjust accordingly as to what will get them the most money.
Well, and I think the money's the thing. I think it's the TV, because this is obviously, I don't want to start getting into conspiracy theories about what the TV deal for around this one. Yeah. But there's a well-reported path of where the money's come from for this TV deal. So it'd be interesting when that's not there, what this is truly worth in the market with teams like Auckland City in there as opposed to Inter Milan. But yeah, those time will only tell.
I think it's going to get to a point where you're going to have to start making a concession for some. And again, you start getting into weird territory, but almost like these legacy clubs. Like, for example, if you'd have changed out Auckland City for Man United, as terrible as Man United are these days, as a brand, themselves are an absolute Goliath. So if you throw Man United in there, the level of interest from broadcasters, sponsors, local audiences, if you're going to run it in the States every time, starts to go through the roof.
See, I don't disagree with this. And I think this is where football, and this is where my more financial minded thing comes out rather than my lower league football fan, the world's against us. Because for me, you've got to understand where the commercial aspect is, and you've got to understand that the global fan will want to see the best playing against the best. Yeah. So if you're able to facilitate that and make sure that there's an effective trickle down of the money, that is how you create a sustainable game. There's nothing wrong with these things like super leagues and stuff like that. It's just a closed shop element. I'm not against these ideas, because I do think a way to play, people talk about the idea that there's too much football now. One of the reasons for that is people are very precious about the existing football, and they won't address what I think there are too many Premier League teams, for example. I think there are too many cup competitions in England, but people don't want to address that. What they want is they don't want the new stuff. They want to keep the old stuff, even though that isn't sustaining the game at the moment. So, I mean, that's a completely different podcast. Won't go down that route, but it will be interesting to see how it develops, because I am unsure at the moment. The direct comparison is this as good as the Champions League? And for me, it's not even close.
No, it's
not even close to the particular Champions League at the moment, where it's had probably a bit of a renaissance year of competitiveness where you're seeing teams winning that. Celtic got through to the playoffs, for example, this year. Like, great result for them. And they were competitive in the playoffs. They weren't against Bayern. They took Bayern all the way in that second leg. So they've got a long way to go.
I agree.
Here's another question. Club World Cup. Something I was sat there pondering on. We've had the Gold Cup. Sorry, we had the 50th anniversary of the Copa America in the USA recently. We've had the Gold Cup last year with all its interesting, not last year, maybe the year before, with the fan trouble and that type of stuff. And now we've had the Confeds there, and now we've had this as a precursor. Did this need to be in America? Do you think that was a mistake? If this was in a more traditional football country, not that America is, I'm not anti-American on football. I'm just saying, if this was in Spain, England, Brazil, would it have been a better product?
I've been thinking about this as well, funnily enough. And I think there's no getting around it. And I think the fact that the World Cup is going to be in the States next year is probably one of the main, might be the sole reason why they did it this way. In addition,
I agree completely. I think it is. I don't think that's a guess. I think that is exactly the reason why it's there.
Yeah. In addition to the vast swaths of money that was thrown in the direction of this tournament to host it. But yeah, I even saw somebody, it was on Twitter, said if you'd have put this tournament even somewhere like Japan, because I remember the Japan World Cup, it was fucking brilliant. I mean, it was one of the first ones
great show.
We remember growing up. But if you put it somewhere in the Far East, where they fucking love football. I mean, Americans, God love them, they don't get football in the same way. I'm not saying it's not, it is relatively popular there to a degree. And their national team's starting to produce better and better players as time goes on.
They're not a terrible. We're not saying it's a terrible footballing nation. It's not.
No.
They're very competitive. A large part of their population love football, and it's the main sport for a large part of their, particularly Hispanic populations. Like, fully get that. We're not saying that. We're just saying that if it was in a more traditional football country, would there be more of a buzz about it?
Yeah, massively so. I think the sheer size of America, for even if half of the country was all sold, all in, loving it, you've then got another 200 million people who don't care. It's a lot of people. It's like you said, you bring it to Spain, or you bring it to the likes of Germany, England, Brazil. If you held it in Rio, for fuck's sake, oh my God, it'd be absolutely popping off, especially with the representation that they're getting with the likes of Flamengo and Palmeiras. So yeah, I do think that you need to consider the host nation a little bit more carefully, because if you see the streets of Rio flooded with fans of clubs from all places, you see it a bit in Times Square, but for every football fan in Times Square, there's a tourist there who doesn't give a shit what's going on. Whereas a more football diehard nation, I think, would give you a better atmosphere, and especially if you are going in attendance, it would be like going to a World Cup almost.
I completely agree. And I think Far East, I hadn't even thought about the Far East, but I think that's a fantastic show, particularly Korea and Japan. I think they're amazing shows. Like, it'd be I wouldn't be that buzzed about the kickoff times, but saying that,
No, it'd be awful.
That World Cup was not great for kickoff time, but I don't disagree. I think that's a very good show, Scott. I completely agree. But yeah, that year, I mean, again, I don't want to make it like football elitism and stuff like that. But for me, if I was FIFA and I was thinking I want to make this a success, I probably wouldn't have started in a punt of a country. Like, I wouldn't have started in an area where, like, where essentially football is a second, third, fourth, fifth sport. I wouldn't have done that. I would have done it in a sport that will create a buzz. An England, a France, Far East. I wouldn't do Germany because I think it'd get a bit political. They'd get a bit weird about it. I'd probably stay away from Germany. Yeah, I think I would have done that. But nope, good. Glad we agree on that. I suppose lastly, before we have a break and then get on to the Chelsea campaign, is what's been your view of the transfer window beforehand? Do you think that's added to it, or do you think it's made it a little bit of it's added a bit of an element of farce not farce, that's a bit, I think it's going too far, but it's made it a little bit pre-season-y.
A little bit, and I'll tell you what, I bet it's making some people on Twitter a lot of fucking money for the interactions and the stories that they can peddle, because there were a few clubs, Chelsea being one of them, that wanted to get a good amount of business done before the Club World Cup started, so you could register the players, have them in the squad. And I see the logic in that, because you want your new signings in. The quicker they can start playing with the new teammates, the faster they, in theory, should bed in. I get the logic. That makes sense. But then I think you then got this, like a 2 or 3 week transfer window of, it was a
back
mad.
open now. As of today, we're recording on Monday. I think as of today, it's back open, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. So we're back open today, and that's like the actual transfer window. So the regular one. So this sort of pre-transfer window, I think it just added a lot of chaos to, and especially, and this is more a reflection of the modern, I guess, internet football fan than anything. You'd see, I particularly being a not so proud member of the Chelsea Twitter community, you'd see fans melting down because I think on the deadline day of this little window, we were in talks for Mike Maignan and for this for Jamie Gittens of Dortmund.
Yeah,
and we were edging quite close to deals for both, but they both fell through for reasons probably unique to each deal. But I think by and large, what was coming out of the Chelsea camp is that they didn't want to pay what they saw as a Club World Cup tax, because other selling club knows you want to get them in by this date, so the price then starts to gradually increase. So that is a farce in itself. And then you get the reactions of, spoiled dopamine addict internet fans who, if a transfer doesn't go through, everybody's incompetent, everybody needs to be fired. It's an absolute shambles. Nobody knows what they're doing. And it just breeds this. You go from, on Chelsea's side, winning the Conference League and signing Liam Delap in the space of 2 or 3 days. Everyone's on a high. Nobody can wait for the Club World Cup. To Chelsea, in inverted commas, fumble 2 key signings, and now everybody needs to be fired. So I think it just creates an air of unnecessary drama around the club, which is a bit fucking annoying to deal with if you're a fan of one of the clubs involved. So
I think it exactly does that. Creates that anything that creates a cliff edge or deadline. It'll be the same at the end of June with the FFP stuff. Anything that creates that kind of deadline will create an inflated market. So I'm not surprised that happened with. And Gittins, that's going to be a tough deal to do because Dortmund don't sell cheap. They never sell cheap, and he's doing very well there. So that will not be a cheap transfer anyway. Mike Maignan last year of his contract, so and he wants to go.
Yeah, I get it, and I think that there was talk of I've seen conflicting reports. Well, I guess we'll get more into Chelsea shortly, but I've seen conflicting reports about how we might go back in for him as a free agent, and we were happy to not pay 20 odd million, which 20. I think our brains have been broken by the transfer market. You've got fans saying 20 million, just fucking pay it, put it down. It's like, I don't think you understand how much 20 million pounds actually is.
100%. And would signing him, I mean, you finished what? Fourth, wasn't it? Fourth. Does signing Maignan take you from 4th to 1st? I don't think it does.
No, certainly not to 1st. No, I agree.
So what's the point? You might as well wait for a year.
It's a lot of money.
Okay, well, have we anything else you want to add on the Club World Cup before we move on, Scott?
I'll tell you what, we're going to talk about the mighty Chelsea and our 5th and final front of the, or you could see it as the 5th and final front of last season, or the first front of this season, whichever way you want to.
Oh my God! Yeah, I didn't want to talk about this, I only really thought about this when Thomas Muller scored in the Bayern Auckland game, and he said he's his 7th goal of the season. I was like, nah, I'm not having that. Straight away, mate, I'm like, no, I'm not. That's not this season. Like, no, we're nearly like the longest day of the year. Like, it's literally like 2 days, isn't it? So we're well past that. Like, pre-season for Bolton starts in a week and a half.
Yeah. Anything's done in this Club World Cup for me is either pre-season or if they are counting as actual goals in the year, they're on the 25-26 season.
Yeah.
Not doing this woke bullshit.
Yeah, I was talking to my dad about this. So I've got a definitive date in my head. When does the season end for you? What's the last day of the season?
Champions League final.
Bang on. That's exactly when it is. Yeah, so we've actually fixed something because I'm glad you brought that up because that really, really bothered me, actually. Between that and the walk-ons, other than that, I'd say I've been underwhelmed so far, but it's still early days and it will happen. And I think we'll get into a game I think we've all got a little bit more interest in tonight, and we'll talk about that game just after this short break. And we're back. Welcome back, everyone. You'll notice if you are watching on our YouTube channel that I am no longer being burnt to death by the sun. We are recording a little bit earlier than normal because of the main event of the tournament so far, which we'll get onto now. So we're recording. For those, when this goes out, you'll probably already know that what happens. But for those listening, we are recording on Monday evening prior to Chelsea's bout into the tournament, Scott. So
yes,
tell us about who you're playing, what your thoughts are, how are you feeling ahead of your campaign?
I'm feeling good, and this is one of those weird tournaments that I really want us to win, but also as long as nobody gets injured. That's kind of my cut-off point. If we lose Cole Palmer, it's not worth it. But any other time, I'm quite cool with it.
So who are you playing then? Who's the game against?
We are against LAFC, who are I think they're the standing team who kind of came because a team in our group got kicked out, and I think it was to do with it. I think it was to do with ownership or something.
Club Leon, wasn't it? Club Leon.
Yeah, Club Leon.
Multi-club ownership, which we'll cover in a future podcast. We keep saying that, but we never get around to it.
I feel like it's going to be on the agenda for forever, the way football's going, to be honest. I feel like everybody's going to be part of one big corporation soon, and then football's dead. But hopefully that day's a long time off. So yeah, so we've got LAFC, and they are led by a former Chelsea striker in Olivier Giroud, who is plying his trade in Los Angeles these days, which is...
Yes, he is. I forgot about that. Yes, he is.
Seems very fitting for Olivier Giroud. He's a handsome guy, and I can see him cutting around Beverly Hills with his millions.
Oh, there's definitely worse teams to play for than LAFC and LA Galaxy. Like, if I was considering playing in America, I must admit, the first two that come to mind are LA Galaxy and LAFC, I think.
100%. I think this about, like Cesc Fabregas, when you look at his career trajectory, he's like Barcelona, London, Milan, Lake Como. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, Monaco as well.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah, Monaco. I forgot about them. Like, you start to think, like, you've done this right. Like, you've clearly picked your clubs very tactfully in terms of where you want to live. And I rate it. I rate it so highly because what a life that is.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Never really thought about that with Fabregas before, but it's absolutely intentional. Absolutely intentional. So a couple of other players that teams may recognise, and obviously this will go out. So I think former Tottenham goalkeeper Hugo Lloris there with his French teammate.
He is Hugo Lloris. I don't know what how he's been performing, and I think LAFC. I think they're actually doing a lot better than Galaxy, if I remember rightly. I think they're doing pretty good in their Western Conference. I think where were they? Well, they came fifth. Yeah, LA Galaxy were bottom of their conference, so wasn't that hard to do much better than them. So I'd be lying if I said I was concerned about the quality of the opposition. I personally believe that the MLS, as for all the improvements that they've made in the last few years, is possibly one of the worst leagues in the world. the level is so bad, and I think
I don't watch a lot of MLS, if I'm being truthful. I watch more A-League than MLS of the two. And I think they're the comparable two. And that's because of the kickoff time. So that's when I've got up in the morning. Maybe I'm like, walk the dog got in, and it's like Sydney FC versus Melbourne victory. And I'm like, all right, this will do me till the lunchtime kickoff. But I don't watch a lot of MLS, and I find it very nauseating. This is very anti-American, this podcast. It's not intentional, by the way.
But no, we like our American listeners.
Yes,
we have a lot of time
like you, Scott. I don't expect too many issues. I don't think here.
No, I don't. And I think this will be a good. The sheer level of money involved leads me to believe that Chelsea will be under strict instructions to take this quite as seriously as they possibly can without fucking up the beginning of the actual season. So I'm more interested in seeing how we tweak the system that we had from last year, how we integrate some of our new faces. So we've got Liam Delap to check out, who I am pretty sure will start. And I think
I was going to ask that. I was going to ask which of the new faces do you think will start? So we'll start with Delap. So you think Delap will start?
I think, and I also think goalkeeper is one to keep an eye on. I'm pretty sure that Mike Penders is going to get some game time.
That'd be good. I'd like
Chelsea
to see
goal.
that.
I
Tell us
would.
a bit about Mike Penders, Scott, because I feel like that signing's got under the radar. And I know about Penders because obviously I'm a footballing guru. But explain to our listeners that aren't maybe sure about Penders what they can expect. Because for me, this is quite the signing that's gone under the radar.
It has, yeah. And I think we signed him when he was 17. I think it's similar to Esteban. We were waiting until his 18th birthday to sort of start bringing him into the actual Chelsea.
Is that a Brexit thing? Is that a Brexit thing that even on the continent you have to wait to I don't know. Carry on.
I don't really know. I think it might just be is it wise to move a 16-year-old away from family and home? And I don't know. It might just be more of a.
I mean,
when you in the past.
Yeah, when you put it like that, it seems pretty fair, to be fair. But carry on. Sorry, tell us about Penders.
Man like Mike Penders. So he's 19 years old. He's going to be 20, I think, at some point during the season. So he's a tad older than I thought he was.
So he has a birthday. We've established that.
He has a birthday. He's already 6'7" at 19 years old, which is pretty. Even by goalkeeper standards, I think he's a big fucker.
That's Donnarumma level freakness.
Yes. He's compared a lot to Courtois, and I think it's because, again, absolute giant, Belgian. We signed Courtois very young as well. I think the key difference is Courtois was allowed a lot of time out on loan at Atletico Madrid. I think he was there for about 2 or 3 years, and he was able to develop. He was able to develop his game a lot before he ever set foot in the Premier League. So he was kind of. We almost waited for him to be ready to take over from Cech, while Cech was still pretty fucking good, probably one of the best in the league still.
And by the time Courtois came in to Chelsea, he was regarded, I would say, as a top 3 in the world goalkeeper. By the time he stepped into, he'd probably gone past Cech a year before, but it was hard to let go of Cech.
Yeah, because Cech had been so good, and I think Cech's level was such that even him dropping off, he was still right at the top table of goalkeepers. So it was a big call at the time. I think it was Mourinho who made that call to say, right, Courtois, you're my new guy, kind of thing. So Mike Penders, yeah, we keep fucking talking more about Courtois than Penders. But Penders has been playing his trade with Genk, who we signed him from. So we signed him, loaned him back, and he's been doing the business there. And I'm here. A lot of people in the game have spoken extremely highly, but I think Duncan Castles has spoken about Mike Penders as well quite a bit
for quite a long time.
Yeah, so he's on the radar as one of the top goalkeeping prospects in all of world football. And I think this could be one of the examples of the Chelsea model starting to hopefully pay dividends, because he's going to be 20 soon. And you've got Robert Sanchez, who you've seen enough of Robert Sanchez. You already know what he's about. Philip Jorgensen, he's only quite young himself. He's about 23, but he's probably not showing the levels that he needs to be pushing for that number 1. So I think Mike Penders is a bit of a sneaky shout that maybe that's why we didn't push so hard for the likes of Mike Maignan, because you look at this guy, he might be ready now for all we know. Why not give him a chance? You already know what you're getting with Sanchez. You know, you're going to get a decent shot stopper who can't pass for shit and will fuck up and lead to some goal scoring opportunities for the other team. Why not give Penders a go and see how he does?
I must admit, I'm very of the same mindset. I was surprised you were in for Maignan. I think I asked you this at the time, like, I'm surprised that you're in for him, given that Penders is signing. Because for me, I would probably throw my weight. And maybe you're a little bit burnt from Kepa. Or maybe you look at De Gea and just think that the Premier... Yes, you've done well, but the Premier League is a completely different beast for goalkeepers. Maybe there's an element of that. But at 6'7", I'd be surprised if he struggles at corners. Let's put it that
way. Yeah, exactly. He should be good at that. And I think Maignan was a bit of he was some low-hanging fruit, like you said before. Last year of his contract, you might be able to get him for a decent fee. Highly experienced. He's France's number 1 keeper. If you can get him in for a couple of years and have Penders be an understudy to him, maybe, or just see how he goes for the money involved, doesn't seem. And I think whatever happens with Penders, Maignan would be a big improvement on Sanchez. So I think he does raise the level at least a bit. So, but I think if we then see Penders have an absolute blinder of a tournament, we might have our new number 1, and we'd have one for, if we can keep him happy, at least the next 10 years. So I'm very excited to see how he does.
Have we missed anyone? So you reckon Galat, Penders, any other newbies starting?
Yes, I'm very, very keen to see how Andre Santos gets on in Chelsea Blue. He has been, so we signed Andre Santos about 2 years ago. And again, loaned him back to his parent, to the club that we signed him from. He's been at Strasbourg all of last year, along with Petrovic.
I forgot about Andre Santos, to be completely honest. But yes, go on.
Also started in that Brazil game when Estevao started in the same game. So again, another midfielder who had an absolutely fucking brilliant season at Strasbourg. Was one of the better midfielders in all of Ligue 1 last year.
Yeah, they had a very good season, Strasbourg. They finished in Europe. Did they finish in Europe?
I think they got Conference League in the end. They missed out on Europa League by, I think, on the last day.
Yes, saw that. Yeah, Liam Rossini's been given a new contract there as well, I believe. Yeah, so no, that's good. That's good. Okay, that's interesting. What are your expectations for Chelsea in this tournament then? Do you think you'll get at the groups? I think it's 32 minutes. So that's a round of 16 after. So where? No.
Yeah. There's round of 16. Yeah. So in our group, we currently have LAFC, Flamengo, and ES Tunis, who I'd be lying if I said I've heard of you. So apologies, ES Tunis fans who are listening.
I'm going to guess Tunisian. I'm going to guess Tunisian champions and potentially African Champions League pedigree. That's complete guess. I mean, I know that Tunis is the capital of Tunisia. That's about as far as that goes. But yeah.
I think we can stick our neck out on that one.
Yeah.
I think we can commit. So if we don't get out the groups, I think that's either a catastrophic failure or a tactical early exit to get some more rest. I'd go with the latter just to satisfy my own ego if we did. But I think given how the brackets work out, our quarterfinal should, on paper, be either PSG or Atletico. And
is it the same group, or is it like you could face two from the same group? Because the only reason I ask is, when do you play Flamengo? Because that's the tough game, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, I think it is. We play Flamengo. Let's have a little look. I think we have. So I think our second game is on the 20th. Oh yeah, so Friday. This coming Friday we play Flamengo.
So that'll be the second game then.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, that'll be. What time's that on?
7:00 at night. Perfect.
GMT.
Yeah.
I know this has caused Luke some confusion in the predictions league. So right, 7 p.m. GMT on Friday. That's on Friday night as well. That's a right game after work. That'll be it. Okay. Well, that gets me a bit more excited about the Club World Cup. That's the kind of game. They're the games I'm really particularly interested in. These European and South America games. They're the ones that I'm interested in. So yeah, okay, looking forward to that. So you get out the group. What are you thinking? Round of 16 quarterfinals would be a pretty good showing then.
I think if we get to the quarters and get PSG and we go out there, I don't think anybody would have any complaints because PSG are effectively where we hope to be probably in the next 2 years. We've followed a very similar model. I think the big difference is PSG have who I consider a world-class manager in Luis Enrique, and they also had a few elder statesmen already in the team when they started this whole youth project. So they already had, Donnarumma is still on the 27, but has been playing since he was about 4 at the top level. You've had Marquinhos is there, not Vitinha, the other guy. Fabio Ruiz is there. I think he's 29. So you've got that experience feathered in with the youth, which is what we haven't had.
Yeah, they didn't really talk about that much, did they, about the PSG champion? They very much did focus on the new youth in there, but you are right. They have got it's a spine, really. Even Usman Dembele had put into that bracket as well. What's he, 25, 26 now?
Yeah, been around a while. Hakimi, he's been around for quite a while as well.
Yeah. He's youngish, but he's experienced. He's played for some of the biggest clubs in the world, Hakimi, hasn't he?
Exactly.
Everywhere as well. So he's played in everywhere apart from England, really.
He's been Germany, he's been La Liga, he's been all around, and he's won pretty much everywhere he's been as well. So
but he's brilliant.
He's class. Yeah, and so I think if we get to that quarters and get PSG and get absolutely slapped around, that's a nice. If we're not going to win it, I don't mind exiting there because we don't go too far in. Players get a bit more rest. And that's a good measuring stick, I think. Because if PSG are where you hope to be in a couple of years, see how you stack up now. Put your best against their best and just see where the problem areas are.
I suppose the difference, I don't disagree, by the way. And I think when people look at like tournaments, even though I've asked the question because it's natural for the flow of this podcast, I'm sure people would understand that. I think it's quite difficult to say we want to get to this level because it doesn't matter who, it does essentially invariably about who you tied up against, doesn't it? Like,
yeah,
England get knocked out in the quarters, but they lose it to France, for example. But then they the only way to get like Senegal in a quarter. It's a very different quarter, isn't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Although I say that Senegal just slapped them at home. So it's very, I don't disagree with that. Okay, perfect. So,
but yeah, for the record, I would like us to go on and win it. I would love us to go because it's the first one. And Chelsea, although it's not strictly a European competition, we do well in Europe. Like Chelsea are a good European club team. I don't know what it is about those competitions, but we tend to turn up. If we don't win them outright, we tend to have a good showing. So hopefully that carries through. And the cash injection as well. I think that's something that a lot of people, for a club like Chelsea, who are, for as much as we want to say they're in a healthy PSR position, if you win and get 100 million quid as a prize, that might change. You might then start talking about, rather than going for a Gittins, you're looking at a Leao or a Barcola or somebody in that next echelon
it's
of
nearly
deal.
an Enzo Fernandez, and
not quite.
So not that. I mean, that is quite interesting. I suppose if you dare try and win it, and it isn't. And I've got a theory as to why Chelsea are good in Europe, by the way. And I want, and I think the reason is, as much as Luis Enrique is a brilliant manager and a project manager, I think Chelsea's success comes from the other side. So because they don't have a set style of play, they don't have a project type, long-term director of football, like super plan. They're very defensive when they come into these big games, and they're able to do that. They don't have that ego where they have to dominate the ball. They're happy to sit back and be, even at home, and counter-attack, and they've often had players that are able to play in that way. And I think that's half the reason why Chelsea do better in Europe than maybe other clubs do. It's because of the lack of identity. They don't feel like they have to represent themselves in that way and lose games where other clubs do, I think.
I think you're right. And when you think of the managers who've had the most joy with us, Tuchel, Mourinho, Conte, the only outlier is really Ancelotti, I think, because all those first three that I mentioned, the common thread is that they're a fucking nightmare to beat. They're very good defensive managers who were very difficult to get results from. I think Ancelotti was the only one who had us really playing this gorgeous, free-flowing champagne football that won us a league at a cancer. So I think you're absolutely spot on.
Maybe I've got a real big thing that Tuchel's a myth, and I've thought it before England. We've talked about this before, and I'm not.
We have.
I'm just not. I don't know. I hope I'm wrong. But anyway, okay. Well, finally then, Scott. By the time this goes out, people will know whether you're right or wrong on this. But what I could ask you, what score have you gone for in the prediction league? What do you actually? Have you changed your mind on that? What have you gone for in the prediction league, and what do you think it'll be tonight / yesterday?
So I've already locked it in, so I've no issue with revealing this publicly. I've gone for a 4-1 Chelsea win because I've seen in the games where you've got some real talent on the pitch, the goals have been flowing quite freely in this tournament so far. In the games where it's maybe a bit of there's not really that, like the Inter Miami game. Yeah, of course you've got Lionel Messi there, but we're not talking about Lionel Messi of 2011. We're talking about a much older, much slower Messi that isn't creating in the same way. So I've gone for a high-scoring game, but I also think I do wonder if the more I think about it, is it a tournament where teams are going to be going all out, taking the foot off the gas a little bit, like you get a bit of a lead and then you start to coast? Because it's hard to know how high up on the importance list this tournament is for a lot of these clubs. So
I think it'll be high. It's Atlanta, isn't it? Atlanta, Georgia.
Yes, yes, it is.
That Mercedes-Benz Stadium, brilliant stadium. By the way, everyone, if you tune in tonight, it's an incredible stadium. But home to the football team and the Falcons. I don't know.
Yeah, the Atlanta Falcons. And does it host anybody? It doesn't host the.
It holds United. I know that much. It definitely holds the football team.
Yeah, I don't know if
they're quite well supported. I believe them and Seattle are the two big ones, aren't they? And okay, so. We think that. What's the weather like? That'd be my only concern playing in America because we are during. like, I wonder about.
Hot.
Yeah, exactly. Especially Georgia's like you're bordering on the south there, aren't you?
Yeah, very humid. It's 30 degrees Celsius. So
And that's no. And what was 5 hours behind there, innit? And we're recording what 7 o'clock now, so 2 p.m. So it's gonna be pretty rough.
It's going to be a hot one. I don't know if that stadium's covered though. I've got a feeling that they might have a. Is that the one that's got the cool Mercedes logo roof? That
yeah, it is definitely the Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Yeah.
It's a cool. It's a very
cool stadium, isn't it? I hope that Chelsea's owners, when they're there, take notes and design the new Stamford Bridge to look like that because that's fucking cool.
Well, it's what United did, didn't it? When they were designing theirs, they went on like a tour of stadium. I know the drawings didn't look good about the Man United stadium, but I'm sure when it's built, it'll look amazing.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they did. They sort of took inspiration from stadiums of the world. But yeah, definitely worth tuning in, guys, tonight. Okay, perfect. Well, I think we've covered everything there, Scott. I think
smashed it, mate.
What's so hard? Martin will be rolling his eyes, getting all worked up, stressed out at some of our answers.
I know. It's all the monster, I think. All the monster and vapes. He needs to calm down on those.
Yeah, well, this is it. He likes to play the like the beleaguered boss. Like it's like we're holding him all down with our attitudes.
Yeah, so, he's the only one with the vision, but yeah.
Anyway, I didn't mention Arsenal too much this time though, so I don't think we can't be having too much mourning. But it's not an Arsenal podcast. I've said this before.
If they qualify for the Club World Cup, then we might talk about them a bit more.
Well, this is it. And Liverpool as well.
Yeah.
And Liverpool. trying to push the Verts thing to right in the middle of the tournament so people talk about them for 5 minutes. We see what you're up to, Liverpool. We know your games.
Exactly. Yeah.
But thank you very much for listening again. Scott, where can everyone find us if they want to listen, download, whatever?
You can find us at fixingfootballpodcast.com.
There you go, fixingfootballpodcast.com. As you know, if you're watching, we are on YouTube. Please leave comments on the YouTube. That really does help us. And if you listen on Spotify, leave comments. This is an Apple. Don't know why you're doing that, but leave comments there as well. Comments are really good for us. They really help us promote the podcast. They get us on all the little algorithms. So it really does help us. But you can find everything on fixingfootballpodcast.com. Scott, do you want to say bye to everyone? Thanks for joining us.
Goodbye, everyone, and up the Chels for this evening.
Up the Chels. Congratulations again to the Nailers, Parker, the newest member of the podcast, and good night, everyone. Up the Chels.